Geraldine Kelly. Geraldine Kelly, at 54 years old, was dying of breast cancer. She was in the late stages of her cancer when she confessed to her daughter of murdering her husband, John T. Kelley. Up until that point, Geraldine had led her daughter, along with her son, to believe that their father had died from being hit by a car while crossing the street. Although she refused to reveal the location of their father's burial site, Geraldine told them that he was buried in another state, and having been estranged to their parents since their teenage years, their children never questioned the validity of her story, as written in a statement released through their lawyers. Geraldine admitted to shooting John in the head and then stuffing his body inside of a freezer and sealing it with duct tape before tucking it away inside a storage unit in Ventura, California. It's there that the body would remain hidden for the next 8 years until Geraldine decided to move back to her hometown of Somerville, Massachusetts, and would haul her husband's body along with her. The driver who helped Geraldine deliver some of her belongings recalled loading up a freezer sealed with duct tape, but claims not to have noticed anything unusual or detect any particular odors coming from the freezer during the move. Geraldine's children took the news of their father's murder to the police, and the body was soon recovered, confirming it to be wrapped in plastic and stashed inside a locked freezer in a Massachusetts storage locker located near Geraldine's home. The freezer was still in the cardboard box and hadn't been plugged in. Associated District Attorney Martha Coakley stated that the body was essentially mummified. It is believed that his body may have been inside the freezer for as long as 14 years. Upon reporting the details of the murder, the couple who owned the motel where both Geraldine and John had been working recalled a conversation that, up until that point, had felt insignificant. It was only the day after John's disappearance that Geraldine informed them that she would need to leave for a bit, saying, "I gotta run because my storage unit just called and said that there's something leaking from my unit." Other friends and co-workers of the couple also recall hearing at least 3 different stories from Geraldine about John's death, all involving the fictional car accident. The owners of the motel claimed that though they had been aware of a good amount of arguments between Geraldine and John, they never saw any violence between them. Though it was also said that she didn't take any guff from anybody, describing Geraldine as a hard worker who was known to drape a large boa constrictor around her neck and also owned several attack dogs. It's unclear whether Geraldine confessed out of remorse or just to prevent the possibility of her children being accused after the body was inevitably found. An old friend of John's from school claimed that, "I don't think she got away with murder because she died of cancer. It's either John's way or God's way of getting back at her." Roy Heath. Roy Heath, at 52 years old, was terminally ill with cancer and living out his final days in a hospice when he confessed to strangling a man to death and then burying him under his patio, apparently being the result of a heated argument between the two in Roy's home. Police located the body under several layers of concrete, roughly 1.5 feet under the soil. Several remains were found wrapped in several plastic bags, coated under a duvet cover, and then rolled up in underlay. The body itself was bound tightly with duct tape at both the wrists and ankles and curled into a fetal position. The body was only skeletal remains after its 12 years of decomposition, which required it to be identified using photographs of the clothing found over the body. Roy died only 13 days after his confession. James Brewer. After suffering from a second major stroke, James Brewer, at age 59 years old, contacted Tennessee police from his hospital bed in Texas, where he seemed compelled to confess his guilt on an over 3-decade-old murder case. James confessed to shooting a man dead in Tennessee over suspicions that he had been involved in an affair with his wife. He allegedly confessed to buying a gun and shooting the man twice, and then leaving him for dead to bleed out on the ground in front of a gas station. James was arrested for his murder shortly after, but was released on bail, which he evaded, fleeing from the state of Tennessee to Texas, where he and his wife took on new aliases to escape his crime, now going by the assumed names of Mike and Dorothy Anderson. It's there that James and his wife lived the next 30 years of their lives, raising their daughter together as regular churchgoers with a kind reputation. During the confession, James told the detectives that he wanted to cleanse his soul and go meet his maker with a clear conscience. Due to the effects of the stroke, much of the confession was assisted by his wife acting as a translator. It's assumed that James believed himself to be on the edge of immediate death, thus inspiring his sudden incentive to finally come clean after 32 years of hiding. However, death would not come soon for James, as in a fateful turn of events, he made a miraculously unexpected recovery, leaving him no choice but to surrender himself to police directly after being released from the hospital, 2 weeks after his confession. As he was 32 years ago, James is now again facing his initial murder charges, even using the same lawyer to represent him as before. His wife also faces her initial charge as an accessory to murder. Christine Kett. Christine Kett was returning home one day to a mass of neighbors crowded around the outside of her house, along with police cars and ambulances. Once she was informed that her daughter had been found dead at the top of the basement steps, Christine grew hysterical. No amount of support or comfort from her friends and neighbors helped to stabilize her outrage. It was sometime later, after police were able to finally calm her down, that she told them she had been out running errands with her daughter home alone to prepare their dinner. Police were quick to question Christine's son, who had been the one to discover the body of his sister upon returning home from work. Her body was bludgeoned, with pieces of her skull and brain found in the basement, while her body laid out atop the steps, with gunpowder smeared across her cheeks and a confusingly unfired pistol laid beside her. The pistol was claimed by her brother, who stated that he had last disassembled the gun, wrapped the components in cloth, and then stored them at the bottom of his trunk. He would later be arrested upon suspicion of his sister's murder, though he was released after additional questioning. Police also arrested a man reportedly seen walking around the neighborhood at the time of her death, as well as a young man rumored to have been her daughter's boyfriend. Both men were also released after questioning. Christine overzealously threw accusations at numerous people throughout town, but with police finding no evidence to connect any of her suspects to her daughter's murder. Meanwhile, rumors had been wildly spreading that Christine herself was at fault, with neighbors talking of overhearing frequent, loud arguments between the mother and daughter. Even threats apparently being made by Christine. 17 years later, the murder remains unsolved, as Christine lays dying of inflammation of the bowels. With her son at her side, Christine confessed to murdering her own daughter. She explained that she had become frustrated when her daughter arrived home late when she had been expected to prepare their dinner. So she struck an axe into her head, sending her instantly lifeless body to fall onto the basement steps. She then planted her son's pistol near the body and smeared gunpowder across her face before leaving the house over the next several hours to prevent suspicion towards her, as well as to confuse police. Christine then made her son promise to keep her confession a secret until he was on his own deathbed, a secret which he broke soon after her death, on the following day. After he shared her confession with the police and the truth had been exposed, neighbors recalled that she didn't even shed a tear at her daughter's funeral. James Washington. While serving time for attempted second-degree murder, 50-year-old inmate James Washington, endured a heart attack, which sent him to the prison hospital. It's believed that, as a result, James expected he was going to die soon, compelling him to confess himself to a nearby guard of a murder he had committed 17 years ago, telling the guard, "I have something to get off my conscience, and you need to hear this. I killed somebody. I beat her to death." James admitted to murdering 35-year-old Joyce Goodner, whose body was found in an abandoned house by firefighters. Her body had been stabbed, beaten with a cinder block, rolled in a rug, and then set on fire. Though James appeared to be certain that his heart condition would soon kill him, allowing him to escape the consequences of his confession, it didn't. James survived and quickly attempted to retract his confession, but to no avail, and after a 3-day trial was convicted of murdering Joyce Goodner and is now facing a life sentence.